phone.
No worries. Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. Bet Parks, and I bet all Eagles fans were feeling it, especially when, was it Xavier Legette at the end there on TV? It looked like he had it. Then you clearly saw he didn't. But, I mean, heart in our chest for a moment there. But ultimately, I mean, Bryce Young, like, 5 unbelievable, including that one that was just, I mean, unreal plays, but, you know, ultimately powered through. You said going in, not a style points game. Well, guess what? You didn't get him, Elliot, but ultimately they come out with the win and 11-2. Like, I'm not going to sit here and go like best game ever, but I understand that for a team that's been on a roll and is, you know, looking at the Panthers on tape, even though the Panthers have been frisky, it might be hard to get up for a game. But, you know, ultimately, even though, like, it's almost like the flip of the Saquon play where it's like that catch, and granted, the Eagles would have a little time left, so maybe they could have scored, but ultimately it goes their way. And look, 11-2.
Yeah, so I don't even know if you realize, but I froze there, left the chat, came back, and then now going. And I feel like that is a little
I didn't. That's hilarious.
Notice,
no,
right?
No.
And I feel
what a pro.
Yes, and I feel like that's a little bit like this game, right? Like, not a great start, not
what
a ton
a king you
points. You like that? But ultimately, when you look back at the record, it'll go down as a win. And when you look back at this video stream and this podcast, you won't even know I left. So ultimately, look, as I sit here in the link and I think about this game, they did not play well. Like, flat out, the offense was not great. And let's be honest, it was mostly the passing
defense
game.
Wasn't great, too. Look, the defense almost gave it away.
So the defense wasn't great. They still only give up 16 points, which and they have that interception with that, which I thought changed the game. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's my player of the game.
Me too, dude. He was awesome and battling through the injuries, whatever they were.
100%. Well, and I'll just say too, being at the stadium, it was flat here. Like, it was flat before the game. It was flat during the game.
That first hit got it going.
And exactly, but also when they signed Chauncey, the whole thing was supposed to be he's going to bring energy. He's going to be a difference maker. Early on in the game, he was the only one I saw in between plays, dancing, high-fiving, getting people hyped up. So I thought he brought the energy on a day where really the whole team looked kind of flat. I thought Jalen looked extremely flat. Like, he's been celebrating more and more in between plays. I think he just walked right to the sideline after every passing touchdown he had today. He seemed in not like great spirits, or at least not super jazzed up for this one. Even when they ran out of the tunnel today, normally when they run out, they'll throw their towel up or put their arms up or whatever. They just ran out very businesslike. So they just weren't a team with a ton of energy today. And I thought Chauncey Gardner-Johnson did his best to change that. And then obviously the interception he has completely changes that game. If he doesn't come away with that interception, the Eagles could very well be down 13-7 at halftime, if not more. They could have been down, I can't do the math off my head, but 17-7.
It would have been bad. Let's just say that.
It wouldn't have been great. So Chauncey comes up with that interception. They score right there. They score at the end of the half. They should have scored it at the first drive of the third quarter. Jake Elliott, unfortunately, misses that kick. So I guess the questions start back up about him again. But I just, when you play in so many primetime games, when you play in Brazil, you play Sunday night, you play Thursday against Washington, you play at Baltimore on the road in a massive playoff environment. It's just, I do think there is a challenge in getting up for these 1:00 games. Like, this sounds dumb, but I'm going to say it anyway, because that's generally what I do. But even for me, you set the alarm for 8 a.m. instead of having to get to the stadium at 1 or 2, right? So there's just a difference in what your daily routine feels like, and they're not used to these type of games. So not making that as an excuse for why they played. I just think, like I said earlier in the week to you, this was like a get in, get out, and get a win. And ultimately they did do it. No style points. You don't really leave this game feeling encouraged about anything, really. I guess Saquon, Chauncey, there were some positives, but mostly, unlike the Falcons game where it's you throw it away because you never want to see it again, I think this is a game where you kind of just throw it away and are happy that it's a win.
Yeah, I think you made a ton of great points in there that I was going to make. And I think the 1:00 thing, I was thinking more about the weaker team, but the 1:00 thing too. And also knowing you have Pittsburgh coming up next week, which is the last potentially great team. I don't think they are, but like they're going to be
They're the
10 and
toughest
3
opponent
after.
left on the
They're going to be
schedule.
10 and 3 after today. They're legit is the point. So I think, it makes sense. I think the Eagles came in today. It's funny. I was thinking a lot in the second half about that comment you made. I believe it was on the last pod, or maybe it was on the morning show, where you were like, yeah, the Eagles just kind of got to go in and play their C- game and they should come out with the win.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And you
That's
didn't think
basically what
they'd
they
cover?
did.
We both didn't think they would cover. I just picked them to cover on the Bet Parks pod because I was like, I picked them to cover and they keep winning, and it worked, and they won again, so I'll keep doing it. But we both said you picked them not to, and I was like, I don't think they're going to cover 12 and a half, and it went to 13. I was like,
to 13,
no,
right.
I was like, it just feels like a classic trap-ish type game, or whatever, a game you kind of don't get up for in the same way. And they got it done. They made plays when they had to. It's funny because it really did feel like they could have just handed the ball to Saquon every play on offense and won the game handily. Like, it was unstoppable. I mean,
again, on in the game,
it was like the quietest. Even still, it was like the first run did, and then he came out of the game and all that stuff. But I mean, he had 120 something yards. It's like the quietest 120 something yards you'll ever see.
Yeah. Well, and he sets the franchise record for rushing yards in a single season.
Shout out, by the way. We should mention that. And look, ultimately, again, though, I do think, just to your point, Elliot, it's sometimes they're human beings. People might not know that. Athletes,
yes, you often bring that up.
And it is just harder to get up for certain things in certain games, especially after a long stretch of football, especially, a 1:00 game against a rando team, So they got to win. They got to win. This is a big one coming up for the style side of it, in terms of like, all right, show that was just you didn't show up for it, and then you're the great team we thought you were, which I believe they are.
Yeah, so I think they've earned enough rope here where they're allowed to turn in one flat performance without everything being questioned.
I agree. Prior to the game.
Yeah, I agree. Next week against the Steelers, I don't want to call it like a must-win game, but I do think it's a must-play better game. Like, I don't think you want to go 2 weeks in a row not playing great. Especially
I love that.
You like that? Thank you. Especially with the collapse. Look, it's still going to be over their head for what it's worth. And I was thinking today when it started to get ugly, like, not great. But I just wanted to circle back on something. I do think the defense was better today, maybe, than others do.
If I said bad, I didn't mean it. Like, I think they were fine, but they look, if Leggett gives up that play, if he catches that ball and scores that touchdown, they lose.
It's like, it's a fair point.
And they also, I know they Bryce Young made great plays, but they also allowed Adam Thielen being that open on 4th and 7. I know Bryce Young made an amazing play to kind of escape pressure, but I mean, it was Adam Thielen was the go-to guy on all those spots. How's he? How? Like, take everyone else take him out of the play and let everyone else beat you. Like, if you have to. Like, it just felt like, I'm with you. It just didn't feel like the shut. And I know they had injuries and guys coming in and out. And shout out to CJ, not just for the way he played, but for the in and out and battling and Slay too. Slay taking that hit, and then Slay made the play at the end too. So I thought they played physical. I didn't think the defense was bad. I just was like, they didn't feel like the best defense in football, which they have for the last 6-8 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that with Adam Thielen, I thought he might be a bit of a tough matchup for Cooper, and I'll have to look back and see, watch the tape. It felt like a lot of big catches he made were against Cooper DeJean. Adam Thielen, a veteran guy, awesome route runner. I could see how that's a tough matchup for a rookie cornerback. I will also say I thought the defensive line got a decent amount of pressure in this one. Bryce Young was definitely moving around. Give Bryce Young credit. He
made some plays.
He made some big time plays. He's hard to bring down. Yeah, he's hard to bring down too.
I was impressed. I was absolutely impressed.
He's small. He squeezes through tight, holes in the line. He had a pretty good game. That third down play he made was unbelievable. When he made that play out of the end zone,
unbelievable. And the 4th down play was great, but that 3rd down play was one of the best plays we've seen get made against the Eagles this year.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, that was a moment where I was like, all right, maybe this isn't going to go their way. I did text you and Jack at some point in the third quarter.
Feels like a loss.
Feels like a loss. That being said, I do still have a lot of confidence in this team, where I don't know if I ever actually thought it was going to end up being a loss. I would have, now look, you're right. That pass is dropped. Maybe that's a touchdown. It's a very, very different game, obviously, but I still think that they felt like they were in control for a lot of it. That last drive was not great. What'd you think of Nick's decision to punt the ball?
I had no problem with it. I real quick, just to your point, and then I'll get to the punting thing. But to your point there, I also agree with you. Even when I thought it was a touchdown, which was the first time all game, I was like,
Me
oh,
too. Yeah.
they might lose. But even then, I was like, oh, they have 44 seconds and 2 timeouts or whatever. Like they can get in a field
I
goal
think
range.
all
Maybe
their
Jake misses,
timeouts.
but I think they whatever all their timeouts. They have a
Yeah.
chance. But as soon as he definitely didn't have it. I never thought they would lose. I'm with you, but still, like we might not have thought they lose, but they came pretty close to losing.
They did. Yeah.
I had no problem with the punt there. I think that ultimately that was a danger zone. And look, I think it played out where Bryce Young having to go further mattered. He made it the amount of yards he probably would have had to if he had gotten the ball where, obviously it's not apples to apples, but I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I had no problem with trusting your, NFL best defense ahead by more than a field goal in that spot. But, if he had gone for it, I wouldn't have been like worst decision ever. I certainly didn't want him to kick a field goal the way Jake was.
Oh, interesting.
But
Because it was 4th
yeah,
and 9. I mean, it was 4th
but
and
it was
9.
like a 57-yarder, 56
Yeah.
somewhere. It was far, so like no chance there. So if he had gone for it, I would have rather he went for it than kick the field goal. But I thought punting was the right decision. I thought Nick had a really good game. I thought I had no coaching issues. They looked like, other than them not being as ready to play as you would hope normally or whatever. And honestly, offensive play calling, just an inability to really get anything going with AJ and Devontae throughout the game.
Yeah.
And maybe, should have just even run it more then, but, I thought it was really just kind of a blah kind of showing,
So before
overall.
we get to the offense, because I think that's probably where more of the concern will probably be from people this week, if I had to guess. Let me just give my thoughts on the decision to punt. So I'm happy to hear you say you thought Nick had a good game, because I don't want it just to come across like I'm always going to say Nick made the right decision, because I do think you should be aggressive, and we talked about that this week. But in that exact spot, I am happy Nick is like willing to sometimes do the conservative thing.
Me too.
I don't think I would not have gone for it on 4th and 9. Like I just wouldn't have. The offense wasn't moving the ball well. I didn't think Jalen this season and today, to his credit, has made big plays in big spots. So maybe he
But
does.
still,
But
I'm
maybe he
with you,
does get it
dude.
done there. But 4th and 9, I'm not going for it. And it's just too long of a field goal. Like there was some chatter in the press box or on Twitter too of like, oh, he doesn't trust Jake Elliott. I don't know, man. Like I can't speak to the wind at that exact moment, but it was super windy down here today. It's cold. I'm sure before the game they figured out where his range was, and I just don't think a 57-yard field goal like was the move. I mean, I would have put
I'd rather they went 4th and 9 for real. Like again, there was no chance I was kicking.
And
None.
and we can't puff our chests out all the time about how they have the best defense in the NFL and then punt the ball to the Carolina Panthers. And now look, I will say
exactly my thought. I said give it back to the best defense in the NFL and let them do what they do.
So I will say it ended up working out great because he gets the ball at the 2-yard line. But let's even just say it doesn't. Like let's say.
Well, I think you trust Man there too. That's part of it too. He's been so good even last game.
They pinned 2 down last week,
and obviously the coverage with Maddox was good. The first good play Avonte Maddox has made all season, which is nice.
Yeah. So I'm okay with the decision to punt the ball. Look, I mean, if Bryce Young doesn't make an unbelievable play on 3rd and long, like it's a probably pretty quick game and it's over. So I thought the decision actually worked out for Nick. Like at a certain point, it's no longer on the decision. Like the defense gave up that 3rd down. The defense gave up another 3rd down. So ultimately the defense has to get the job done. I will say that's when it started to feel a little like the Falcons game, when it was like, all right, like this is
I couldn't stop thinking about it, dude.
Yeah. But no, I thought he made the right decision. Now with the offense, here would be my take. And I reserve the right to change my opinion after watching the game. Like, I didn't think Jalen had a great game. Early on, there was I guess it wasn't seen on the broadcast because we were texting, and I don't think you saw the play. But early on, I think it was the first drive, A.J. Brown is wide open down the field for a touchdown. Now, again, I'm not back there. It's easy to sit up in the press box and say he's open. But man, it's hard for me to believe that play wasn't designed for AJ with how open he was, the fact that he's AJ Brown. It's not like I'm sitting here and saying Johnny Wilson was open. Like AJ Brown is always in the progression, right? So I thought that was look like, and if Jalen hits that play, things feel a lot different. They score in the first quarter, they get out to an early lead, they don't look flat. So I thought that was a bad play by Jalen. The play later on where he slides, like
was a disastrous play.
Well, So let me ask you: do you
I
think
think he was trying to keep the clock
That's
going
what I was
instead,
thinking. Okay.
because he's great at throwing the ball away, like great at it. Even that one
Yeah.
earlier in the game where he kind of leaped out of bounds and threw it to made sure, like he's just really good at that stuff. I think that he thought the clock moving was more important, and I think it was absolutely the wrong decision.
Yeah. So I don't know if
And
I
that happens.
completely.
That happens, you know.
Right. So watching it live, I was definitely in like the what in the world are you doing camp. But then once you realize that he's trying to keep the clock going, like I don't hate that as much as other people. I know you obviously
Yeah,
end up losing 9 yards, but you also kill 40 seconds or whatever it would have been off the clock in a game where at that point, like the clock is super important. I mean, think about it this way. He throws that ball away and you never know for sure because they end up getting the first down. But the Panthers, like they maybe have extra time at the end of the game.
100%.
Like the
It's
clock
possible.
ended up being pretty important. I know they don't convert a fourth, so it kind of doesn't matter. But ultimately, watching it live, I was like, "What in the world are you doing?" Other than that, I get the killing the clock or not wanting the clock to stop thing. I just think outside of that, like at one point of the game, he was 11 of 17 for 77 yards. Like they didn't do a good job moving the ball today. I don't know if this was on the broadcast, but we talked about it at halftime with Tucker. Did you see AJ threw his helmet into the
I
bench?
didn't. You texted about it, but I didn't
Right.
see it. Was it
I thought there
after that play where he missed him, or like
No,
didn't
it
see
was
him?
like it was like 2 drives later. I thought the passing game was frustrating today. I think AJ, look, you shouldn't slam your helmet. Like it's just not worth whatever's gonna come from that. But like I understand the frustration. Like I thought Jalen held onto the ball too long today. Again, this isn't the benefit of the rewatch, but I thought he held on to it too long today. I thought AJ was pretty consistently open and not getting the ball. And if you're someone that's like worried about the passing game, I think today unless you just want to chalk it up as just a whatever game, which I think is fine. Like today was not a good game passing the ball, and the Panthers defense is not good. Like they didn't have Jadeveon Clowney. Their secondary is not very good. So to struggle passing the ball, I did think was if you're gonna have one big concern for him today, for me, it would be either Jalen or the no points in the first quarter. Those would be my two like top concerns. I'm
Yeah.
not
So the
concerned
no
about the
points in the
defense.
fourth quarter, it's like
First,
first quarter. I mean, been
yeah,
there, done that. Like it's what we do. I again, I'm the one who said to you that last pod. Like if I had one of the few things that would concern me about this team is falling into a hole, not being able to come out of it because of the slow starts. But like
yeah.
ultimately for me, I look. I 100% agree with you with the offense, the passing offense. I think, again, honestly, the best way I could describe it is every time they didn't hand it to Saquon or even Gainwell, I hated it. Like
Yeah,
instinctually, when there's a play and like, if you want him to run or pass or whatever, you're like in the moment feeling because and then obviously play design, all these other things, but just instinctually, when he goes back and either hands it off or doesn't, you know what you want. And every single time he didn't hand it to Saquon, I was like, what are we
yeah.
doing?
Yeah,
Every
I
time.
don't
So
disagree.
it was inconsistent. It was bad. He couldn't get AJ or Devontae really going other than, look, he, again, as always, had a few big plays. That run that he had, the 36-yarder was massive, massive, massive. Like, and, again, it felt like a ho-hum game for everyone other than like CJ who kind of brought the energy
I
essentially,
agree. I agree. Yeah.
So it's like it is, I'm with you. No excuses or anything. I thought Jalen wasn't very good overall, and I thought the offense in general outside of Saquon and running the ball was not good. So yeah, with you. I think it was the worst
So
part of the game. But I also, to the point we made at the beginning, I understand it from a human perspective. And next week against Pittsburgh, if they come back and look like the offense we've seen, and the first quarter thing, like, again, like maybe that I think the most logical thing is what we talked about, that they're trying to see what the other team's giving them. Other teams are giving them looks they haven't seen on
yeah,
tape yet that year, and
I
they're
think
just
Jalen
adjusting,
starts slow.
and it's good. And I think Jalen starts. I
Yeah, I think
totally
he
agree with you.
starts slow.
So yeah,
So the last thing I would say before we wrap this up is like obviously, as I've said plenty of times on this podcast, I love riding the emotional roller coaster, like especially on the post game pod. Like I love doing the overreaction. I think today,
you,
I know me of
you,
all people. Like today, I'm not doing the roller coaster thing, or if I am, it's like maybe one of those little baby roller coasters.
they've earned that we
Yeah,
shouldn't.
like again, I think Jalen was not great. I think today was the first time I felt a little like, come on, man, about the first quarter offense. Like the Panthers' first quarter defense is the second worst in the NFL. So today was the first day I started to tip a little bit on the side of like, all right, you got to solve this, especially since it looks more and more like they're going to Detroit. But today's win is big in that way too. like, had they lost this, the 1 seed's completely
Oh,
gone.
buddy.
And that
Yeah.
Washington game potentially becomes a little interesting. Just
Totally.
if
So
you lose to
it was
Pittsburgh.
big. It was big, especially a conference opponent, like big win.
Yeah. I think it's one of those, they got in, they got the win, they leave with a win, and like on to Pittsburgh is kind of my
exactly.
mentality,
No, that's exactly. And again, like we'd be hypocrites to crush them for doing that. That's what we say going in. You literally said play C minus.
So many weeks in a
Don't
row.
get hurt. Come out without too many major issues, and be ready for Pittsburgh. At home, get a week at home. They've been on the road forever too. Like give them a chance to. So I'm so with you. Like, but I think it sets up for a really, really fun game this week that we should be excited for in terms of, look, we saw them in Baltimore. We've seen them have nice wins. So like, it's not like they have to have a measuring stick win, but it is one. Like it just is. It's the best team left on their schedule. It's a big game. So you want to see how I do. I know you have to go real quick. For those watching the video, you get the luck of seeing Zoe's bedroom. Do you see this?
There it is. Well, it's
her bed with a little house. You were like, you thought I was in a shed or something to start?
No.
Like,
I just said it was a fun, but it is funny to picture
Tucker said it. Tucker was like, are you shooting it from a shed?
Yeah, it's funny to picture that being your room, and you're just like, what? This is my room. But it's
totally. Yeah, well, happy birthday, Zoe. We had her entire birthday weekend. The party, it was great, but now
she was wished happy birthday on Go Birds Radio. Don't worry, she was.
It was
the tri-state area got a happy birthday, Zoe. So.
That's me touching my heart right there. Yes, that's like, you're the best, buddy. All right. So we will be back later in the week, set up for a big game react, and obviously keep the eye out for the Go Birds Daily and all that. Yep. That's all we got. Look, 11-2, man. They are 11 after all that happened last year and all the crap and all the stuff. Like 11-2. It's pretty good. All right, we'll talk to you guys later in the week. Until then, he's I.M. James.